Hey there, welcome to Contracts and Chaos. My name's Alyssa.
And I'm Brenna, and we're here to tell you that you are not alone in the mayhem of this real estate industry.
We're keeping it real and sharing our stories, strategies, and successes in today's real estate world.
So come join us every Tuesday while we talk contracts and chaos.
As I love him, but he's in my room, and I got all my bathroom stuff out into the guest bath, but didn't think to get clothes out. So I'm wearing what I wore yesterday.
That's
which
perfect.
Is fine.
Well, obviously you can see I'm super professional today too.
Well, I have to
This is real life, kids.
This is a real life. Welcome to this is what it's actually like being a realtor. Some days you just
this
wake up
is
and
the
start
chaos
working,
part.
and right, and you don't get dressed
Yep.
until 3 o'clock. That's
Exactly.
actually very accurate in my world often.
And no, it is because I've already been doing listing paperwork this morning. I sent a buyer for pre-approval. I've been working. I just
Right?
I don't look like I've been working. That's all.
All right,
Today we are talking about a very important subject, and I feel like it's such a great time to talk about it too, because coming into this spring market, I know that so many of us are listing hungry. So we are going to chat about some things that we do personally to try to get more listings, because what do they say, like list to last or something like that?
Yes.
It is true. Buyers are hard. That you work with buyers, and obviously they're going to find a home at some point. There's something about having, I guess I want to call it the security of having a listing, right? If you're doing your job properly, marketing that listing, you're going to sell that property. So here we're just going to go through some fun. I don't know if they're fun, but some good ideas,
Right. And
to
I think
get listings.
and I think before we jump into that, I just want to touch on, but it's also okay if you have a seller withdraw a listing. No matter what you do, it's not selling, because sometimes sellers don't listen. And no matter what the
Mm-hmm.
feedback says or the low offers are telling them based on the market, that's not your fault. If you've done everything you can and you have a seller that won't listen, don't beat yourself up if you end up with something that's pulled off the market. We've all
Mm-hmm.
been there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got listings that are sitting, and it's not because they're not priced incorrectly or anything like that. It's just even pulling the showing time reports, you can see where people are looking at properties, and there's just no activity in that price range right now. So it's one of those things. Sometimes they sit a little bit longer. We're certainly not in a 2021 or 2020 situation where I'm not finished putting a sign up and we're under contract,
Right.
So we are back to a little bit more strategic marketing these
Yes.
days.
But yes, back to the topic at hand, how the things we do personally to try to get more listings versus sellers. And I've sprinkled in some tips from some coaches. Tom Ferry, some of his advice is in here too, so it's not just what we do. But yeah, what is your favorite thing? I actually love one of the things you do, and we met on the side about it last week because I want to start doing one of the things you do. So what's your favorite, or what do you get the most response out of?
And we've talked about this before, I'm a Southern transplant. So I came originally from Maine. So I didn't come with a high school friend sphere of people that were getting ready to buy or sell, that kind of thing. I came in knowing no one, nothing. So, my first years in real estate, I work, and still, because I actually love doing this. And a lot of people are like, ugh, I really don't like doing that. But for sale by owners, I love for sale by owners. And there's something about the fact that they're literally sitting there with their hand up to say, I want to sell my house and I need help selling my house. I've never done this before. Help me. That's literally, to me, what a for sale by owner is. They obviously want to move. They're putting the effort in themselves. So me being able to kind of start a relationship as far as explaining to them the process and what I can do to make this job actually easier on them to sell their property, that's where a huge chunk of my business has been over the last 4 or 5 years. And the process for that has evolved. I've done cold calling. I've done, door knocking, which I hate. I will not do that again. But
Really?
I don't like door knocking. I really, really don't. It's not something that I liked doing as a kid when we were selling, like Girl Scout cookies or fundraising. I hated it, and that hasn't changed as an adult for me. I just don't like walking up and like knocking on a door and waiting to have a conversation that way. I would rather get somebody at a point where it's almost more convenient for them. So actually, I get more response recently through text messages than I do cold calling.
I find that interesting because I can't stand when people send me a cold text message.
Really, really.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's so different, and I did a lot of just the dialing for the first couple of years, and it works. It really does. But for me, it's something because people can see a text message and then be like, "Oh, I'll get back to them." So I might send out messages. I usually do it first thing in the morning, and I might not get a response until 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock. I could get a response in 5 minutes. But it's something that's more convenient for them to answer my questions on their own time versus answering a phone call and me be like, "Hi, I'm calling about the property you're trying to sell." And they're like, "I'm literally trying to work," So
Right,
that works better
right.
for me.
And where are you, just to touch? I mean, I know obviously like door knocking, you probably saw a Fizbo sign in the yard, but where are you getting them from?
A lot of it's on Zillow. Zillow for a while wasn't posting their phone numbers, and there's a little rule around that too for the do not call list. If somebody's advertising their phone number, you're not going to get in trouble for calling it. So,
Right. Or if they have an
um,
item for sale, you're not in trouble for looking
correct.
up their number.
Correct. So, any Zillow for sale by owners, a lot of them have the property owner number listed. You can call or text that number. And Facebook Marketplace. Actually, a lot of people have listings on Facebook Marketplace that sometimes I don't even find on Zillow. They've just thrown it onto Facebook to see who they can find scrolling through the local yard sale groups.
Right. And I've done that. I got a listing that way once. Someone just put out a feeler saying, they needed to sell their house, and investors had reached out, but they felt like they were being screwed. And actually, someone else reposted it, and I followed up with the person and got the listing instead of the other agent who reposted it. Um, it works. It
Yep.
works. It's something I need to get back into doing that. Because when I first started, that's how I got a lot of my first listing. She wasn't even. Oh goodness, my first listing was from Facebook. She made a post. Was a friend about don't buy from this guy. It's all a scam. And I reached out. I was like, "Girl, you buying a house? Like, what's going on?" She's like, "No, that was about a used car. But actually, I do want to sell my townhouse and buy a house. Can you come over tomorrow?" And I was
Well,
like,
that was easy.
"Yep." Right? It
That's
was
funny.
like I remember thinking like, "Is this really this can't be this easy."
This
Everyone
can't be
says
the
this
and
is not easy.
it usually isn't. No, my first listing was the same way though. They're actually they were out of state sellers. Like the house was vacant. They lived 3.5 hours away, and they were selling it. And I said I can do this, and we did everything electronically. I never even met the people until closing day, and that was my first. That was my first listing. But you said something a minute ago that I want to circle back to. And when you said that you got a listing over another agent because you followed back up and you reached back out to that person versus just sharing or making that initial contact, that is the moneymaker. I'll
Yes,
tell
it is.
everybody that me setting appointments on the first interaction, it very rarely happens because I'm just not like that pushy of an individual. My husband would tell you otherwise, but I'm not. So so for me, it's building more of a rapport over keeping those small promises that I make. Like if I tell you I'm going to follow back up on Tuesday, I'm going to call you on Tuesday, and that like consistency. They're like, oh, this girl like shows up and does what she says she's going to do before we are even ever in an agreement. You know what I mean? So that goes a long way. A lot of people will make that call to try to set the appointment. And if they don't get the appointment, they may never reach back out to that seller. And I feel like that's where a lot of opportunities are missed.
And that listing I actually won over a discount agent. My commission was higher, and part of the reason I won, he said, was because I because they were interviewing multiple agents, and the agent I saw posted it in the community group, so I was like, "Hey, a challenge is a challenge. Let me see what I can do. Like it's not your listing yet." And they had interviewed other agents, and he was like, "You're the only one that called when you said you would call." It was that easy. I mean, and I still they moved. out of town, and I still talk to them regularly. Like they're one of my favorite clients. Um, okay, one of my favorite ways to do it, because I think it's a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Passive, which I'm not usually okay with, but it lets you know that these people are truly interested, like, or they at least want to know what their house is worth. I love doing home valuation calls to action. Um, Put it on Facebook and say, hey, absolutely no pressure, but here's, especially at tax season, or like if your tax rates have gone up recently or home valuations have gone up, people need to adjust their insurance policies. So I love doing that. I put it on Facebook. We've done it. Our newsletter for our farm has that in there every other month. We're not doing it every month. And it just brings them to either a landing page that will take them automatically to it, or we send them to a Google sheet that collects all their information. And then from there, we'll pull a specific one and I'll put together one of these things that Brenna taught me how to make. A seller box or a listing box. It has all sorts of stuff in it. And if they ask for one, then they're going to get that dropped at their door. If they're out of town, then I might email it or mail them a physical one. But I think it's a great way because then they're actually interested. You're not just cold calling someone to be like, hey, would you like to sell your house? You can put it, if you do mailers, put it on your postcards. I do it in my social media. Someone said to do it on a billboard. I guess if you put a giant QR code on it, maybe, but I feel like that's gonna cause accidents. Or
Yeah.
maybe just put like a call to action of call me for or something like that. But if you're trying to get them into a landing page, maybe a billboard's not the best idea.
Yeah, can you imagine trying to scan a QR code 65 miles an hour down the highway? The only thing that I
No.
could think that if you did that, you would have to do one of those like text codes, like
Yeah,
text
maybe a text code would
CMA
work.
to 88907. And I made that number up. Don't text that to that number because I don't know what will happen. But what is your landing page when you have them request a CMA? Do you do that through your Lofty?
I do. I use Lofty for it. But actually I was just gonna pull it up. Hold on.
So Lofty is our CRM. It's very similar to those of you who use like KV Core, like that kind of thing. It's like an in-house, like it's got your website, it has your CRM, like lead follow-up, like that kind of thing, all housed into one platform.
Yes, and I was just gonna look at my forms to see if anyone, because Tuesday is the day I double check this to see if anyone has requested an equity report this week from our farming. Um, Now, when we did this, we first did this a year ago as a door. Oh, we do. Yes, we did get one. Awesome. So I need to put one of those together. We first did this as a
Look at you
farming thing,
getting leads.
right? But we did it as a farming thing last January, so January 2023. And the way I did it then took forever, was not cost effective. Um, but I will say so far got me more responses than this year. Now, not anyone who wanted to actually sell, but people engaging and thanking us for the information. And that was, I printed
Hmm.
a full CMA for them and with recent comps in their neighborhood. So this year, we just did a flyer that we attached with our newsletter in January and said if you're interested. And so far, it's been a much slower response, but we are going to continue with it. And we're also
Yep.
having a stronger presence in that neighborhood this year. So I feel like those two combined will get us more leads in that neighborhood, which is
The
exciting.
something else that I use, and you've probably heard of it too, is HomeBot.
Yes,
Have you
I have
used HomeBot?
HomeBot. Yep. I haven't used it in a
So
while because it was attached to a lender that I don't usually work with anymore,
hmm.
but I have used
Yeah,
it.
so mine is I'm partnered with a lender. It cuts down on the monthly cost, but it is super cool. So I've seen recently, so over the winter, there really wasn't like that much open activity. My most recent month of HomeBot reports, which is just an email that goes out that says, hey, here's what's changed in the market. This is like your predicted equity. And again, this is something that you need to dive into personally and like create one. It is a computer generated number, but it's something that keeps them engaged and involved involved because it'll pull up your market stats, it'll pull up different things like that. They can enter their own loan information and really truly like see what their payoff is versus their equity, which is super cool. But the last 2 months, I've had over an 80% open rate on those emails that are automatically sent out through HomeBot. And I've had 4 people reach out to me and say, hey, is this the number? And I've been able to like update and have a conversation. And a couple of them are past clients. And it's just a good way to stay in touch and an easy way for, because it's automated, to just like show up for somebody over time. And the same thing, that this has a platform that you can have people opt into it, so it's like a landing page, and that's where a lot of people have come from for me too.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go update mine and play with it some more. Like I said, I haven't used it in a while, but it is a really good tool. Um, yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, me too. So, a couple of other things to kind of go along with that is just to be able to put that kind of information, like that CRM link, like you can post that on Facebook, on YouTube, like those kinds of things if you're doing a reel. And a client of mine reached out and asked about their equity, updated the numbers, and it turns out even from last year to this year, they've gained an additional 18,000 or 31,000. You know what I mean? Give a number, and then people are like, oh, wow, that all happened in such a short amount of time. One of my neighbors they bought their house a few years ago, and their equity has increased almost $80,000 since their last refinance just a year and a
Nice.
half ago. So it's insane. Like, people don't realize that home equity right now, years and years ago, your equity was gained like slowly, consistently, methodically over time. In the last few years, like we're seeing equity really quickly. So I think that that's a great way to do it. And that's, if you have a professional page on Facebook, like you can run ads through there as well and just touch people. I hate saying that.
Touch
Reach
people.
people, reach people that aren't already in your pipeline, aren't already in your sphere that you're like consistently reaching out to. Somebody from, halfway across the state or out of state, because you can always refer that business out as well. But um, we're always heavy on social media
Yes,
and
it's
getting
free.
business that
Like
way.
Gary V will tell you, he has a quote somewhere that's like, um, 30, 40 years ago, for our parents to build business and reach as many people as we do for free with social media would have cost them tens of thousands of dollars. So
Mm-hmm.
why aren't you using it? And
Correct.
it's true. Now, you can do paid ads, which is actually one of the next things I was going to talk about. But for the most part, like if you get to choose what your social media says, right? You get to choose what you present on your social media. So if you are talking about first time buyer stuff all the time, don't be surprised if you're not getting listings.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how it goes. But if you're constantly talking about selling and how to time the market and all these things, then you're going to be seen as a seller's expert. So that you can translate, or you can also use in your like ads on those platforms. So if you want to run ads on YouTube or Facebook, Hulu and podcasts are the two new places I'm going to look into doing ads. I want to see what they cost. But if you can use that talk and you want more listings, then you need to be talking about selling. But it doesn't need to be, you should sell your house with me. No, like be creative about it. Give information. Come from a place of value. Um, and I think another thing is like if it's not a video ad, if it's a flat thing, pair it with a download. Pair it with something about, getting your house ready to sell, or even just like some type of like home maintenance checklist, something that they would want, that's worth something, and not worth something like dollar wise, but value to help them. Um, that will help what is the word? I keep wanting to say translate. That's not the word I want. That will help turn them into seller clients.
Convert.
Yes, thank you. Convert. I'm gonna go get that tattooed today. That will help convert them into sellers, and without you having to even try hard, because you're coming from a place of value. You're offering them something helpful versus just saying, you should sell with me. I'm the number one agent in this neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually something that I was going to mention too. So I use Flowdesk, and there's something that you can actually include a PDF. Like if they were to click the button inside the email, it would immediately download a PDF, not bring them to like a website or anything like that. You can set it up that way. But a PDF is great. So like you said, um, three curb appeal ideas for under $500. You know what I mean? Are you looking to sell? Here's three ways to bump up your kitchen. Anyways, those kinds of things that lead back directly into listing. So, home maintenance. Here's the three most found items on a home inspection, or the scariest things that a buyer find on a home inspection, and like what you can do to eliminate that problem. Yeah. And through like Flowdesk, and I'm sure it's similar with a lot of other email platforms, you can see, like I said, the open rate on those emails and the click through rate. So the people who get the emails and the people who open them, because that's just going to help you narrow down like how serious they are. Yes, they put their email in. Yes, they opened the email. Yes, they got the download. So that's like three steps they've made it through that they might be pretty interested in potentially selling their house.
Yep, for sure. I definitely think that is something that is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Do you send anniversary cards?
I was just gonna say I'll do this one. I had a client actually yesterday. It was her 3-year home anniversary, and I don't actually send a card. What I do again is rope in that social media part of it. So whether I make a new post that
I
says,
saw your
"Hey,"
post yesterday,
yeah,
yes.
and like tag them in it and say, "Did you realize it's been 3 years?" Right? Not only is that boosting my engagement, people seeing, and some of them from yesterday thought that it was a new buyer that I had just helped, but it wasn't. It was a 3-year-old client. But hey, look, you bought your house 3 years ago, and then their people are seeing it and that kind of thing. I do think that there's something super personal, and we've talked about this about sending a card. But for me, I utilize that part of it as something that will a remind them of me, of our experience together. B, show their friends and family who they use, kind of thing, especially since I haven't had any clients, knock on wood, that hated our transaction together. So it's just like, oh yeah, that was a great time, thanks so much, you know what I mean? I think that that's a great way to do it. But you send cards, don't you?
I do. I send an anniversary card that just says congratulations, like on 1 year, whatnot. And then I think they usually send a text that says, "Oh my God, thanks for the card. Like that was adorable." And when they do that, I say, "Hey, by the way, guys, thought this could be of some information." Again, I always relate it back to in case you need to update your insurance or your life insurance, even not even just your homeowners. Ran a quick CMA. I'm going to email it over because that card opens that conversation, and then I slide that CMA in, and they're always like, "Whoa, wait, what? It's worth how much now?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
not no pressure to sell, but just so you guys can make informed decisions. Here's what it looks like." And I don't know if you've done any updates. If you have, that could change things too.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah,
it's a
that's a
great
great way
way.
to do it.
Okay, so one of my favorite things, and I think I need to do a better job of optimizing my profiles for these. But Yelp, I'm actually not even on yet. That was a Tom Ferry one, but Google reviews. Every time I close with someone, I send a request for Google reviews. At the beginning of every year, I send it to all of my past clients and say, "Hey, just in case you haven't had a chance, I'd love to start the year on a great foot. Would you mind?" But I need to optimize my search engine results for my Google reviews, which is on my list of goals this year. But that's a great way because let's be honest, all of us go to Google first. Whenever we
Mm-hmm.
want something, we go to Google or we go to Yelp. Like my family says I'm the only person allowed to pick restaurants sometimes because, and you know how I'm so good at it? I just look at the pictures.
Yeah,
I
look at
look
the
at the
pictures.
pictures of the food and I'm like,
If
"Oh, that's where we're going."
Yeah, if it doesn't look good, it's probably yeah.
Right. So make sure you're checking your Google or your realtor.com or whatever it is and that those reviews are showing up. Sometimes those private websites like to take them down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Make sure they're on your web page, post them on your social media if you like, copy paste them over. But those reviews, it's a peer review process. So other people are telling strangers, yeah, they were great. You should use them.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
make
and
sure it's
I
up to date.
actually print those reviews and stuff inside the seller box that you were telling them about, the home equity report. I actually printed out on a full sheet label. There's 5 or 6 reviews on there from specifically sellers, because you don't want to put reviews from buyers in your seller box. That's not helpful. But hyper local content, and I think that this is going to tie into like a database thing too, but hyper local content is something that I'm really working on hard this year, because I mean, we're both, if you're licensed in North Carolina, you're licensed to cover the whole state. I've worked in several places across the state, but Gary Keller will tell you that you need to be 5 Mile famous. Like, this is where your stomping grounds are. This is where you go grocery shopping, go tanning. This is where your kids go to school, where you go out to eat, where you're going to be the most recognizable because you're here all the time. So this year I'm really dialing in on that, being a part of the school as much as I can, because that's a double whammy for me. I get to be with the kids more and be a face of the community, which is great. But this gets very specific. You can get down into the nitty gritty of one neighborhood, which, like, your farm would be super helpful. You could take 2 listings and compare what they sold for versus their differences, kind of thing. You could talk about, so 321, where I live, is getting a road expansion this year, and 127. So, what the traffic patterns are going to look like there, and what that would affect for those surrounding neighborhoods in that area. It's going to be a 4 to 5 year project, but what's that going to look like for neighborhood A, B, and C? You know what I mean? And tag those places. Like, if you're just posting content and tagging North Carolina real estate, like, you're going to reach a lot of people, which is great. But if you're trying to be super hyper local, tag Newton, North Carolina. You
Right.
know, that kind of thing. You're gonna reach more people that are hyper local to you, hyper interested in that specific information, than you would just being generic. I think they say when you market to everyone, you market to no one. So I think that that's a super important piece for me. I'm doing a really local newsletter that's going out on a monthly basis. It's just started. We just started this year, so I'm excited about it. I already have people who've reached out to put their information in it for next month. Talking about, like, I would like to be able to partner with local businesses as well and be like, oh, this month's featured business is so and so. Mention the newsletter and get 10% off your service, or whatever the case may be. But also in there, I have a section that's talking about the market stats. It'll be a home maintenance tip of the month, like that kind of thing. So it's sending out sports information and local news and events, but it's also tying back to real estate, which is ultimately what we want, because a lot of these people might not be ready to sell right now, but next year, when they've received my newsletter 12 times and they're like, oh yeah, Brenna really knows this area, hopefully that'll be the connection that gets me more business.
Yeah, and I think we've seen this trend in different ways, and I love the way you're doing it. We're doing the same thing with our newsletter. We're also sponsoring a yard of the month starting in April in the neighborhood we're farming, and we're going to use local, like, landscape and greenhouse businesses for the prizes, even if it's just a pretty potted plant.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also doing, and this is kind of a theory that people have been doing for a couple years now, but anytime I go out to eat somewhere or do something, I'm making a video about it. So last week I did one. It was National Pizza Day, and I was like, crap, I got to go get a couple slices to make content. And happened to strike up a conversation with the woman working behind the counter and found out this pizza place is a nonprofit. And they donate all of their proceeds to help women escape domestic violence.
Oh, what a cool story.
Right? So I did a video on it, and like, it hasn't blown up, but it did really well. And I'm trying to connect with the owner to interview him. Or last week, the town I live in is getting a new baseball team. And I went to the press conference and I took some video and then just did a quick video of, like, hey, here's 5 facts I know about it so far. I'll get you more information soon. Well, I've met with the owner and or met him there, and he said, "Hey, reach out. We can work together. It will help both of our businesses flourish." This is not Major League Baseball, but it's a professional baseball team. So get out, even if you're just meeting the people in the community. Like, I go to every city council meeting. The city council leaders know who I am now. So I'm sure as long as I maintain a good relationship with them, that's going to benefit at some point. So even not just hyper local content, but be hyper local. Be involved,
Hmm.
like you said, you're involved with a school. Be involved with those things that your neighbors and the community you want to sell in live in and work in and play in, because they will see you and it will come up in conversation. Like, I firmly believe networking will get you indoors a degree would never knock on.
Hmm. Absolutely. Another one that I feel like people, when they think open houses, they don't think seller leads, do they?
No,
What
they
do you?
think buyers.
They think buyers, but open houses are a great way to get potential listings, especially if you do. I think we talked about this, was it last episode, doing a VIP hour, right? A neighbors only preview, which is super helpful. I actually did get a listing from doing one of these because they come in and they're touring the house and like, oh, what are you listing for? And then you start that conversation of, oh, we're listing it, this is the price. And they say, oh wow, like my house either is a 4 bedrooms bigger, it's way better, I changed the kitchen, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. That's a CMA, like that's a home equity report that you can then do. And when they see, oh wow, like this is what I could sell this house for, it's a great way to make connections. And if you have multiple listings in the same neighborhood, like it, it's contagious.
Yep.
You know, if you're consistently working and selling in a neighborhood, your face is just going to be that more recognizable for people. But open houses is great. And I know that you're going to say door knock for these, and it's not my jam,
I
Alyssa.
think it's a different type of door knock for an open house versus trying to get a FISBO or just a cold door knock.
Mm-hmm.
The way I do it is the flyer that I hand out, whether or not they're home, thanks them for being patient. And it says, "Hey, like, I know traffic's been busy the last couple days because we've been selling this house. Thank you for being patient. Would love to see you at the open house and meet you, or please share this with any friends and family you know that want to live in the area." And that's literally what I say to them at the door too, is, "Hey, just wanted to let you know traffic might be a little busier than normal tomorrow or
Mm-hmm.
whatever day, and just wanted to thank you for being patient. If you're interested, we'd love to see you come over like 30 minutes before the official start time so that you can see the house too, and please share this." I've never had anyone be like, "Wah, wah, wah, wah." They're like, "Oh, thank you." Like, they know. Now they're like, "Okay, well, we know we have a kid's soccer game that we have to work around, like, to get out to make sure if it is busy." Because I'll tell you, open houses were crazy 21, 22, right? Or like that, and then died out in 23.
Mm-hmm.
24, they are picking back up. If you have a good listing and it's a good open house, there. I had one in the middle of nowhere a couple weeks ago, and I had like 9 couples come through it,
That's
and it went
awesome.
under contract 2 days later. Like, they're coming back. So there was traffic in this tiny little cul-de-sac that doesn't normally have traffic on a Sunday
Mm-hmm.
afternoon. But I think if you come from that approach and say, "Hey, thank you, and we understand this is changing the flow in the neighborhood for a couple days," you'll be well received.
That would have been a great win. I had a townhouse this summer that I sold that they were set up around the circle. You know what I mean? Like it was ultimately all in a cul-de-sac and there was like separate parking for each individual townhouse, but when we had an open house, there was a few people that were parking in those owners like reserved spaces because it's not a big community. There's only like 20 or 30 townhouses in it.
Right.
So it's very small, but that would have been a great way to say, like, hey, sorry about your parking spot.
Right.
No,
Oops.
that's great.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
that's, I've never, and even if they're not home, I just stick it in the door so that when they do get home, they're aware, like, "Oh, okay, there's going to be an open house tomorrow."
Mm-hmm.
Now if it's like rural, I mail those. I'm not going to walk across acre lots or 2 acre lots to try and get, I just do a circle prospect from our tax records for like the 50 closest houses,
Yep.
and I mail it like the Monday or Tuesday before that open house so that they're aware. Because there's no need in a rural area. Please don't get shot. Um,
Please don't get
just saying. Um, okay. Now there's one idea that I got from Tom Ferry that I have never done.
I,
I mean,
I
I'm
was gonna ask you if you'd ever done a seller seminar because I have
no,
not.
but I think it's a great idea. I am just not sure how I would execute it. You can do them virtual, you could do it in person. His big sticking point was they need to be recurring. Do one every month. Like, so maybe put it on Eventbrite and do it virtually so that you're not standing in an empty room somewhere waiting for people to show up.
Hmm.
Um, but if you're consistent and you have good information, and again, this is something where you can say, hey, if you come to this event, we'll give you the maintenance list or whatever PDF download, is your thing, to try to attract people. But that it will, people will come because think about it. We do this every day. Most sellers do this every 5 to 15 years. So it's not a muscle memory for them. Like I met with a seller last week. Actually, sorry, I was just looking at my tracker. I'm like, I haven't put them on there yet. And he even used to be a realtor, but he hasn't bought a house since 1999 or 2000 something. That's 20, almost 30 years.
Yeah, it's a long time.
So, right. And he hasn't bought anything. And so I actually realized after I left, I was like, I totally forgot. I didn't mention due diligence. Due diligence has changed since the last time they bought or sold anything.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great idea because so many people are like, I don't know, I haven't done it in forever. But you have to be consistent. It's just like I'm doing the coffee and collaboration networking. 6 people showed up the first week, one showed up the second. I'm not giving up. Like, I'm
Hmm.
still going to do that every week. But I think seller seminars are the same. Like, figure out what your thing is, like how you want to host it, and do it every month. And whether or not people come, just keep doing it because people will talk about it. People will see that you're doing something if you promote it, and it will help you get more sellers because they'll be like, oh, well, if she's doing seminars on how to sell, or I shouldn't assume everyone listening is a woman. If they're doing a seminar on how to sell, then obviously they're the expert. So even if they don't come to your seminar, they're going to hopefully come to you because they see you as someone, well, if she can teach a class on it, then they must know what they're doing, right?
Right, right. Yeah. For me, I think that like monthly, I know that I wouldn't personally be able to commit to a monthly thing like that unless I could figure out how to make it really, really pop online. But maybe like a quarterly event would be cool. And then two things that I can think of immediately off the top of my head because a lender really isn't a great contact for a seller for them to like partner with you, but a home inspector
I was just thinking the
and
same
a
thing.
home warranty would be a great connection to make for a seller seminar because whether you do both or just one per seminar, a home inspector can talk about like items that a seller can look for themselves, right, to eliminate those things and what they would flag as a concern. And you could offer like for the inspector to come, like if he gets a pre-listing inspection, maybe offer $50 off of that inspection for those sellers that opt to use them. Same thing for a home warranty. Maybe they're going to offer them a something off of the home warranty, like a percentage or $10 off the home warranty or $50 off the home inspection pre-listing, that kind of thing, because that's going to help them move the needle forward for them to sell their house, get the information that they need up front, and give you somebody, a partner in that seminar.
Right. And I think we've mentioned it before that some home inspectors, if they do a pre inspection before your listing, they'll put a sign in the front yard with a QR code and you'll get that money back. So that's my new thing. Is like with all my listings, like the one I'm going to have coming up hopefully soon, we're going to do that whether my seller wants to or not. Like, and I shouldn't say that, not well, whether they want to or not, but I'm really going to push it and say, hey, this is going to save us negotiating. This is going to save us from having to make repairs later. We're going to identify what we know, either fix it or say we're not fixing it and price has been adjusted accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
And then but you will get that money back, or I will, whoever pays for it, because for every time someone scans this to see the the inspection. So they're going to have to pay to see it. I think it's a great idea. I love it.
Yep.
And I think that's something to leverage in advertisements. Like figure out how to use that when doing these seminars or when doing Facebook ads to leverage to say, okay, like this is something we're going to do to save you time and money. The last one we've kind of touched on with all these other ideas.
Yeah, I think we using
Like,
your database and things like that, newsletter. I know we've talked about that, but that's part of I think each each idea that we've talked about.
yeah, like it's always come back to people in your database or
Mm-hmm.
make sure the content that you're sending them demonstrates your expertise. Again, if you're only talking about buying in whatever's going out to them, then they're not going to want to sell with you. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're only talking about selling, they're not going to want. So it's got to be a good balance. But if you really are pushing for listings in the next 6 months, then that content needs to be pushing for listings.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And this isn't saying like I know that there's like still like just listing agents out there. So by all means, you should be talking just about listings, not about buyers or anything like that. And there's also just buyer's agents. So if you are strictly a buyer's agent, of course you don't want to be advertising seller information for listings. But that's part of like niching, so
Yeah, however
whatever
you
they
pronounce
call it,
that word.
however you say that,
That's like the
picking your
Appalachia.
avatar.
Just say it however
Appalachia.
you want. Is it Appalachia or Appalachia?
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, I hope that you got one or two or 17 ideas out of this because these are, say, except for the seller seminar, these are things that we have done
Yes.
and do on a regular basis.
Yes. And like I said, I am going to start trying to implement the seller seminars. I'm going to see if Inspector Crazy Pants will partner with me on that.
Preston. Yeah, I think
Preston.
that's a great idea. And especially because it's not something that you see a lot of. I think that you could get some interest because you're forever seeing new home buyer seminars and things like that. This is something completely different that personally I've never seen a home seller seminar. So,
Mm-mm. I think they're great.
yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Well, like Brenna said, I hope you got something great from this, whether it's one of them, all of them. I would say at least take one of these if you're not already doing any of these and put it into action. Focus on one and then build. And then otherwise, we will see you next week.
See you next week. We just finished another episode of Contracts and Chaos, but believe me, the chaos does not stop here. So check out the show notes for our email address and where to follow us on socials, and we will see you next week.